beloved nation of Rasulullah, to Allah Almighty and save the Prophet, beloved colleagues, Grand Sheikh, Maulana Sheikh, and all others, all whom they are searching and seeking for spiritualities and realities and to be ascending in the heavenly ways of Allah Almighty. The heavenly ways of Allah Almighty is blocked for everyone who has even one atom of proudness in his heart. And it is open for the one who has also even less than an atom of humbleness. Proudness, blocking all ways of pharmacy, even worship, even play, even practice, even you. And proudness in your heart, enmity to people, to mankind, all mankind, believer or non-believer, to each other, unrespecting each other, all this blocking all ways for the spirituality and for the soul to carry on your bodies and to take you up to the heavenly station, to the divine presence of Allah Almighty, the divine presence of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Don't think awliya was dressed by light of wilayah, that they did something good or they were doing something which make this light to come over them. No. Never. Prophet, they took light of prophecy. Never awliya took lights of wilayah. Never moments took light of iman by their progressing good works or worshipping or practicing will not lead this to any of these whom Allah Almighty before He created him, just they were atoms and lights manifestation before to appear in this life, in the physical bodies. Yet they are La ilaha illallah, not yet loaded and descended to Muhammadun Rasulullah, whom Allah Almighty chose them and perfected them, Him by self, and by the training of His beloved sealed of Prophet who is in the level of creation, the Lord of creation. Allah dressed them by light of prophecy. For saints, awliya dressed them by lights of awliya of sainthood. For mu'mins, dressed them by the lights of iman. For shaheed, by the lights of shahada. And for salihin, the religious one, by light of religious. Don't think anyone, he is getting this by his own power. Allah is not looking whatever you are doing in this life, bad or good. There is going to be a day called Day of Judgment where Allah will question you. Either you were obeying Allah Almighty and doing well, and He will reward goodness by goodness, or He will be question you and doing badly, and He will reward badness by badness. Allah Almighty is the most forgiving one, for most merciful one, for the one whom they are well saying tawakkaltu ala Allah, depending on Allah Almighty. And they know that Allah Almighty is the most forgivable, merciful one, and so they devote their life. Even they are working in this life, even they are earning the money and doing well in this life. In the meantime, they are doing well to please Allah Almighty, to please Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and never asking for a reward from Allah Almighty, never asking for a reward from what they are worshipping or doing. Anyone who worship Allah Almighty and ask for thawab, for reward, to be rewarded, he will be dropped from the eyes of Allah Almighty, dropped from the eyes of Rasulullah, as if he is worshipping statues, because he is worshipping the reward, not worshipping Allah Almighty. Allah Almighty like the one who worship Him to be pure, for love of Allah Almighty, love of Rasulullah, pleasing Allah Almighty, pleasing Rasulullah, without waiting any reward. But he must always wait to be scared from Allah Almighty. He doesn't know what Allah Almighty will descend on his head from sickness, from burdens, from all means of suffering, because Allah Almighty perhaps choosing the one to sacrifice him on behalf of all his ancestors. And for this even you are the most big saint, awliya, and you see all burdens and all suffering coming over you, not from you. It is you are carrying all your ancestors and Allah sacrificing you for this. And Allah Almighty will then dress you in day of judgment to be in neighborhood to Allah Almighty, neighborhood to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because never in your life you ask for a thawab, for a reward. Now, for example, they say go to Mecca and pray 2 rak'at. Every rak'ah Allah will give you the thawab, good tidings, rewarding by 100,000 rak'ah. These one are dropped from the eyes of Allah Almighty. You go to Mecca to worship Allah Almighty, to please Allah Almighty, not to wait what Allah will compensate you or giving to you by worshipping Him. The one who is worshipping the reward, getting good tidings as if he is worshipping statues with Allah Almighty. Like this sealed of Awliya Quran Shaykh said, anything you want to do, anything you want to pray, charity, practicing, fasting, see it from Allah Almighty to Allah Almighty, to please Allah Almighty, to love Allah Almighty, to what? To gain, what to be rewarded, to be gained and rewarded by owning Allah Almighty, to have Allah Almighty for you, to love Allah Almighty, for the sake that to be beloved to Allah Almighty, beloved to Rasulullah and Allah Almighty and sealed of Prophet, to be beloved to you. Don't worship to have good tidings or reward. Don't sell yourself for something cheap. You want to sell yourself something important. Once a king, he was so old, getting to die, he collected all his ministers and his people and he told them, anyone ask, whatever you want I will give. I want to split and distribute all this kingdom on my people and ministers. And everyone what asking, he is giving. Until the prime minister, the chief minister of him, he didn't ask for anything. He told, why you are not asking? All they asked, and all the people, and I gave all this kingdom to them. Why you didn't ask anything? He told you, oh my beloved king, I want to own you. I want you. Because if I own you and can get you to be owned by me, then I have everything. Then all this kingdom for me and all these people for me. And the one who can own Allah Almighty, own beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he will be beloved to them and he will be then owning everything, because they are the everything with everything. They are the all in all. They are the one in everyone, and everyone is existing by them. When you own this whom there everyone existing by him, you own everything. No need to ask, no need to be then a one whom searching for a small land in paradise or a garden in paradise, or to be safe from Jahannam. Jahannam to awliya, to saints, same as paradise. Paradise is where Allah Almighty dressing His satisfying from people, and Jahannam where is the angerness of Allah Almighty from their wrong deeds, not from themselves. Allah never is angry from the essence of a human being or the soul, because they are lights of Allah Almighty, and they are Allah Almighty appearing them from the divinely word of command by He, and He blow from His soul into all the souls and the essence of everyone. Never will be punished, but their deeds, Allah will be angry from the deeds of us. When you worship Allah Almighty for reward, to be rewarded and to be reaching high stations, then Allah Almighty will be angry from what you are doing and He will clean you by His angerness. The name of Muntaqim, the revenge, Allah never is revenge from anyone, but His name of revenge, Muntaqim, from our deeds, from our bad deeds, even good deeds. Because when you pray, you think you did something well? No, it is very worse. Because it is full with thoughts, full with everything coming in your heart, in your ego, in your nafs. Nothing, no one in the prayer is seeing Allah Almighty. Or when he reaches to sujood, is making sujood to Allah Almighty. Or even he's saluting at-tahiyyatu lillah, never seeing Allah Almighty, because addressing Him, the saluting, greeting Him. Why? Because we are veiled by our egos, by our satanic work. If we are not able, first of all, before worshipping and to ask reward and high stations, get rid of satanic word in you. Get rid of your egoistic word. Get rid of all insulting people, proudness, collecting money to be famous, or to be decorated by knowledge to be famous, and to have murids and to have students. You must be a forgotten one, ruining anything between you and all creation, and built up between what is between you and Allah Almighty, between you and beloved Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, to build up your heart, which you ruined it by the love of this life, and by asking Allah Almighty for every goodness you are doing. I want 10 times, I want 100 times, I want to be rewarded, I want paradise. You are worshipping Allah to please Him and to make Him love to you, Maulana say, or you are for sake to have a paradise and to be safe from Jahannam. Then the worshipping no more to Allah Almighty. It will be for as if you are worshipping the reward, and as if you are worshipping statues beside Allah Almighty. Instead, to be this sincere to Allah Almighty worshipping, it will be going to where you are thinking that you want to be rewarded. And the ones whom in their worshipping never concentrating or focusing on Allah Almighty, seeing Allah Almighty, and they notice that if not seeing Him, at least He is seeing them. They must know that He is seeing them between His hand. How you are in the kingdom of Allah Almighty, between the hand of Allah Almighty, and thinking what you will do after you finish the prayer. How thoughts will go and come. You think about your family, your house, your business. Until you finish the prayer, you will be missing all the soul of the prayer, and it will be like a funeral. How you present it to Allah Almighty. Something good, and then you tell Him, oh, give me reward. And for this, Sayyidina Imam Shafi'i radiallahu anh, and for Mazhab, they say after any worshipping, any prayer, say Astaghfirullah from what you did. Repent, asking Astaghfirullah 3 times from Allah Almighty, that what you worship and did is not worth to be presented to Allah Almighty, because it was going to all your thoughts and poisoned by your satanic word, by your ego, and then you will ask heavenly stations. A heavenly station, first of all, to purify yourself. And no one can purify himself, because the purification, it is only in the hand of Allah Almighty and sealed of Prophet. The hidayah is only in the hand of Allah Almighty, the guidance in the hand of Allah Almighty. And Allah Almighty even telling His beloved Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Holy Quran, that the hidayah in my hand, my beloved Muhammad, also is not with you. You will adjust the one, you will correct the one to reach to the right path, to attract my hidayah toward him, my guidance toward him. But you cannot give hidayah to anyone. And he was how much asking Rasulullah hidayah for his uncle Abu Talib, who brought him up, was not able, because Allah Almighty say, I'm not going to send hidayah. Not the one you love, I will send hidayah. The one who you don't love, I will send hidayah. No. As I like, as I love, I see the heart. The one who is sincere, I will send guidance to him, hidayah. Even without sending guidance, Allah will upgrade the one and give him good end, like Sayyidina Abu Talib, the uncle of Rasulullah. He brought Rasulullah and never accepting to say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But Allah making him falsely in his last breathing, one only make last seconds of the soul coming from his throat, out of his body, when he was only and not, which means exhaling and not inhaling, Allah Almighty forced him there to announce to say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, but it was between him and Allah Almighty and sealed of Prophet. No one entered in between, so that the tribe of him, the people of him, never to criticize him. But he went on Iman and good end. And the same Allah Almighty, for sake of Rasulullah, he survived the father and mother of Rasulullah. Let the ulama know this, that Allah Almighty survived. And Rasulullah went to the grave of his mother, to the grave of his father, and he called them, and Allah survived them for his sake. And they say, looking at their beloved son and saying, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. We accept Allah Almighty, we accept you, beloved Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we accept Islam. How they are not believers and are the one whom they carrying the holy body of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And for this, if you want to carry the light of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you must purify yourself. You must clean yourself. How to clean ourselves? How to purify ourselves? By all the time saying in everything, in your good day, in your bad day, in happiness or sadness, tawakkaltu ala Allah. I am depending on Allah Almighty. I am a servant for you. I am created by you, Allah Almighty. You can do whatever you want with me, and I am happy by what you are descending on me and whatever you are doing. If badness, I must always repent and say astaghfirullah, because from my badness and my sins you are sending this. And if something goodness coming to you, say shukr ya Rab, because it is from the blessing of Allah Almighty that Allah pleased from you sending this goodness over you. And for the one who purify himself by always saying this, the password, the key to the heavenly stations, so that Allah Almighty will look at you and upgrade you, is tawakkaltu ala Allah. And for this Allah mentioning it in the whole Quran, all prophets, sealed of prophet, all saints, all Sahaba, on their tongue all the time, توكلنا على الله توكلت على الله حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل وعلى الله فليتوكل المؤمنون وعلى الله فليتوكل المتوكلون. How many ayat Allah saying? Always the one who want to be reaching heavenly stations and purifying himself, say, I am depending on you, my God. I am depending on you, my God. Even you are an unbeliever. Because Allah saying in one ayat, say tawakkaltu ala Allah, for every mu'min, every believer to say tawakkaltu ala Allah. In another ayat he say, وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُتَوَكِّلُونَ. In general, for all children of Adam alayhi salam, believer or non-believer, always to be depending on their Creator and to refer everything coming over them from Creator, and to be happy by what Allah Almighty sending, not complaining. Don't complain, because complaining from the satanic world of you, complaining from the egoist world of you, and especially the worshippers or the believers, they are so too much depending on their worshipping, instead to be depending on Allah Almighty. They say, oh Allah Almighty, you are fasting, you are praying, you are doing everything good for you. Why you are sending over us this suffering? Allah Almighty will be unhappy, will be unpleased, because Allah always not depending on what you are doing, because all created and programmed by Allah Almighty on you. It is not from you. They are coming from Him to Him, through you. And for this Allah Almighty likes the one not to complain, always to be depending on Allah Almighty, seeing everything from Allah Almighty, and he is to have blessed by patience and happy from whatever coming without any even changing his face in the face of Allah Almighty and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like this, Rasulullah trained his Sahaba, and it took him 23 years to finish their training. After 23 years, when he was 63 years of age and he was going to pass away and was in Arafah, he told them when he was coming back from Arafah, ending the Hajj, he told them from Allah Almighty that today I completed for you Islam, which means I completed you and bless Allah all of you by Islam, He is pleased from you, not for your working or worshipping, but because Allah Almighty through seal of Prophet, He purified them, perfecting them, changing their chemistry, changing them from satanic world, egoistic world, to be stars. And Rasulullah say, my companion like stars, by whom you guide yourself, you will be guided. And the same till day of judgment, the spiritual companion for Rasulullah, Sahaba. They are the saints, the awliyaullah, whom they smelt themselves in this life. Even they were working, but making all the money and working in their fingers, never entering to their heart except Allah Almighty. Only Allah Almighty in their heart, only sealed of Prophet ﷺ and love of Allah Almighty, love of Rasulullah. In their heart, in their soul, in their essence. And whatever they work or gain or whatever Allah sending for them between their fingers, when Allah will tell them, drop it, they will drop it quickly. They don't care for it. Now, if he dropped 1 penny, he will be crying for it. He want to give charity, his hand will be like this. Unless he is a chosen one to Allah Almighty, his hand will be like this. He doesn't care. He will say, coming from Allah Almighty, going to Allah Almighty, I want the love of Allah Almighty. He will not say, I want paradise, I want this or that, I want to be rewarded. No, he will say, I want love of Allah Almighty, love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, love of all Sahaba, Ahlul Baik, all awliyaullah. I want to love me, I want to own them, I want to be crowded with them, to be one of them. Then no more there is any kind of egoistic thoughts will coming to you, or Satan or devils, they play with you. Then they will be all the time, you are under the training of Allah Almighty, training of sealed of Prophet, under the training of the awliya saint, whom Allah appointed in every period of time to look after His people after the creation, until you will be blessed by at least to be crowded with them and to be in companionship to them. Because Allah Almighty, if not dressing the one by lights of wilayah, at least He will dress them by light of to be crowded with the awliyaullah, with prophets, with sealed of prophet, with Allah Almighty in the day of judgment. And for this you see that the dog of the people of Cave Ahlul Kahf, who loved these believers and following them, how much they throw stones on him, bleeding him, fracturing, broken all his hands and his legs, and was bleeding, not able to walk, crawling behind them. And they want to get rid of him, because from his barking, the soldier of the king noticed that they are running away and sheltering themselves to that cave. Allah Almighty ordered, keep him, let him follow, you will not bark, and for the sake of His love. Not He is asking from them money, not asking from them gardens, not asking from them properties, not asking anything. He is a dog, animal. But He was asking because their love, because He loved them. He has love toward them. Even He is bleeding, broken, crawling and following from the love which Allah put in his heart. How about you, human being, mankind, whom Allah honored you and created you? If you plant yourself on love of Allah Almighty, love of Rasulullah, all your worshipping, build it only to own Allah Almighty, to love Allah Almighty, to love Rasulullah, even to all kind of suffering and all kind of burdens coming over you, still you are loving Allah Almighty and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and awliya, you will be then like this dog, to be crowded and followed, where all animals will be, after a question day of judgment, be sent. The dog of these people of the cave of Ahlul Kahf will be entering into paradises. The only animal you will see, 3 animals in paradises, and all the other animals will be dust. After questioning them, the dog of these people of Ahlul Kahf cave, and the camel of Sayyidina Salih, Prophet Salih alayhi salam, and the donkey of Prophet Uzair, one of the prophets of children of Israel. These only will be entering paradise of their love to their prophet, to the believers, to the awliya. Allah make them to be crowded with them. Never we have to Allah Almighty as the dog he has to the one who owns him. You see the dog how is loyal to the one who owns him. How the dog is loyal to the one he give him a piece of meat or a bone or food. He will follow him, never will leave him. He will be loyal to him. He will attack anyone who wants to harm him. And he is only an animal. Any one of us will do like this for the sake of Allah Almighty or Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or awliyaullah. The first of all, we protect and defend our shaitan, our devil, Satan. This is the most important. We defend our physical life, how to be rich, how to be wealthy one. First of all. After we are so satisfied and our ego satisfied, our desire satisfied, then we look to worship and to pray and to be pleasing Allah Almighty. And not pleasing, only we asking reward, to have reward, to have paradise, to enter paradise. We forget what all in our past life we did. Now we pray 2 rak'at, give us Jannah, Allah, give us paradise. Reward us. Why? Because I prayed 2 rak'at. Enough. Instead Allah Almighty to be scolding the one of us for his own badness, all that years in his life. And now we want to stand and to pray 2 rak'at with all your egoistic and satanic words and the proudness. Just now you were attacking my people, backbiting them, insulting them, controlling them, badly doing with them, not respecting them. Even between yourself and between Allah Almighty, in yourself, inside yourself, you are enemy to everyone. And they are not used to be enemy to you. If they were enemy to you, perhaps Allah will forgive you. But they are not enemy for you. But why you are jealous from them? Why they have money? Why they are richer than me? Why they have wealth and I don't have? Why they have a house, I don't have a house? Why they have a palace? Why he is a sultan, I am not a sultan? Why he is a minister, I am not a minister? Why he has a car, I don't have a car? Why he has a donkey, I don't have a donkey? Like this, all this make the one to have jealous in his heart. And jealous, Rasulullah swearing by Allah Almighty, فَوَاللَّهِ وَرَبُّ الْكَعْبِ لا يدخل الجنة من وجد في قلبه مثقال ذرة من حسد أو كبر. That Allah, Rasulullah means he was swearing by Allah Almighty, never a one will enter to Jannah, to paradise, and there is a tiny atom of jealous and proudness in his heart, because the paradise, the Jannah is so light. Only take the pure one, take the sincere ones can step on Jannah. And for this Allah Almighty making our physical body to come to this earth, and this earth every day and night. The awliya here, all animals here, except mankind, never one hearing. crying, screaming, "Oh Allah Almighty, why you put over me people who disobeying you? Why you are putting people who committing sins and badness and not sincere to you, making them to be living on me?" And then when one is dead and buried, more and more crying and screaming, "Oh Allah Almighty, why you make me to be a grave, to make them inside me?" While she is always the earth, praising Allah Almighty, glorifying Allah Almighty, and always obeying, worshipping Allah Almighty, but the people living on it, they are always worshipping shaitan, Satan, worshipping their egos. Never anyone worshipping Allah Almighty or sincere with Allah Almighty, but they are sincere with their egos, with their satanic world, with their egoistic world, with enmity to each other, and the earth is screaming, and the awliya will calm her down, and they will be on behalf of all this creation repenting to Allah Almighty, saying Astaghfirullah, Tawbah Ya Rabb, all the time, because to calm her down, and also to calm the angerness of Allah Almighty from what His people, how much Allah Almighty giving them health, eyes, ears, nose, well-being, perfect bodies, and still they are, instead to say shukr and to be devoting themselves for Allah Almighty, they are devoting themselves to Satan, to shaitan, to their egoistic world, to their sexual desires, to their desires, and to everything which make them to be dropped from the eyes of Allah Almighty and Rasulullah. And the one whom they are in the mosque and worshipping and doing well, all they are asking to be rewarded. They are making business with Allah Almighty. We are worshipping you, you give us paradise. Worshipping you, you give us goodness. Only you see the awliya of whom they are following, awliya Allah, so few that they will never ask for any reward, and they devote themselves for Allah Almighty. On behalf of all children of Adam, they worship Allah Almighty, they obey Allah Almighty, they repent to Allah Almighty on their behalf, and they ask only Allah to be pleased and Rasulullah. They ask for love of Allah Almighty and Rasulullah. And wherever they will say, wherever you want to put us, in hell, in power, we don't care for this. We want to own you. We want to be owning you, Allah Almighty, owning you, beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu wardah, he was the minister of Rasulullah, the first man to enter to Islam, and he was the first Khalifa of Rasulullah after the passing away of Rasulullah. What he used to say, "I am not worshipping you that I am scared from your hell and punishment, neither am worshipping you that I am for asking paradises and the other goodness of the good life. No, O Allah Almighty, I am worshipping you, I am loving you, loving sealed of Prophet, doing my best, devoting all my life and all my money to you, Allah Almighty, and sealed of Prophet, to own you, to please you, to be satisfied and pleased, and to dress me by love from you and love. Only I want love from you, love of Rasulullah." And he put this as a title for all the one Sahaba and all the ones whom following Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, all Sufi ways, even the ways of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh. The titles of it is Ilahi Anta Maqsudi wa Ridaka Matlubi. That, oh Allah Almighty, you are my target, I want you to own you, and wa Ridaka Matlubi, to please you, to be pleased from me, and to please you, Allah Almighty. This is what I want. And he taught, and this was addressed to all the saints and successors and all followers of the awliyaullah, always to say, Ilahi anta maqsoodi wa ridaka matlubi, yani never to do any practicing or worshipping except asking love of Allah Almighty, Allah to be pleased, not asking for reward. May Allah forgive us, mercy us. Ila sharaf al-Nabi Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa alihi wa sallam. حضرة أستاذنا وأستاذ الإسلام الصديق من الله تعالى الفاتح. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Finish. Switch it on. That's done, finish. Well,